For those who appreciate Rome's profound history, we often see it in, well, two distinct lights, right?
Yeah, the grandeur of the ancient empire.
And then the vibrancy of its modern capital.
Exactly.
But today, we're digging into something else, the deliberate, really audacious redesign that sort of connected these eras. It basically created the Rome we experience today.
That's right. We're embarking on a deep dive into, well, one of history's most ambitious urban renewal projects.
Okay.
We'll unpack the sources that reveal how Rome, once this grand capital, it just dwindled, became a forgotten medieval town
Hard to imagine.
before being reborn as the vibrant heart of the Christian world.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really complex interplay of religion, politics, and, well, architectural genius that shaped its modern face.
So our mission here is to pull out the surprising nuggets, the key bits of knowledge about this incredible transformation.
Highlighting the key figures, the big ideas.
Yeah, the audacious ideas that turned this, dilapidated city into a model for urban planning. Actually, a model across the globe. You'll get a quick, thorough understanding of how a city can be consciously rebuilt and how that influences, your experience of cities even today.
Should be interesting.
Okay, let's unpack this. Let's maybe start by establishing just how huge ancient Rome's importance was.
Yeah, it's crucial context.
We're talking about the capital of, well, arguably the most significant state in human history.
No question. Its empire stretched from the Sahara right up to the borders of England and Scotland,
Wow.
with the Mediterranean basically acting as its internal sea.
An internal sea, yeah.
And at its peak, ancient Rome was this giant metropolis, home to about 1 million people.
1 million back then.
And you can still see its ancient walls. They're perfectly readable on modern maps.
That's amazing.
What's really fascinating here, I think, is that Rome, unlike, say, ancient Athens.
Right, which became a small town around ruins.
Exactly. Or Constantinople, which is modern Istanbul, inhabited by a totally different civilization. Rome continuously maintained its ancient city character. It never fully lost that identity, even when things got really bad.
Okay, but it did decline. So that raises the question, how did a city this massive shrink so profoundly after its fall?
Well, by the mid-14th century, the population had just crashed.
Crashed how much?
Down to as little as 30,000 people, maybe even less.
From 1 million? That's staggering.
And these few people were mostly clustered in this small triangle near the Tiber River.
Okay, sort of where Piazza Navona and the Vatican area are now.
Precisely. And this collapse wasn't just, monuments crumbling.
Yeah.
The barbarian incursions, they didn't just smash statues. They systematically wiped out critical infrastructure.
Like what specifically?
Most importantly, the aqueducts. They cut the water.
And without water.
The entire eastern half of the city became effectively uninhabitable.
Just empty.
Yeah, it transformed once thriving districts into desolate, waterless ruins. Just fields, really. It's a stark reminder of how central infrastructure is for a city to even survive.
So, given this truly bleak picture, a ruined city, shrinking population, no water in half of it, what was it then that made it worth saving?
Right. Why bother?
Yeah, what intrinsic value did it still hold that made anyone even think about such a massive project?
Well, Rome's importance for its physical rebirth, it really hinges on its role as the heart of Christianity.
Okay, so religion is the key driver here.
Absolutely. Despite early Roman persecution, and it's important to remember, they saw Christians as committing state treason.
It wasn't about belief in Christ per se.
No, it was political. Denying the divinity of Caesar was an act against the state. Simple as that.
Okay.
But then the Edict of Milan fundamentally shifted their status, allowing Christianity to flourish.
Right. Constantine and his mother, Helena.
Exactly. And this transformed Rome into the ultimate pilgrimage destination.
Because of the holy sites.
Yes. It housed the tombs of apostles like Peter and Paul, St. Peter's Basilica, St. Paul outside the walls.
Santa Maria Maggiore, too, right? The first one for the Virgin Mary.
That's the one, famously built where snow fell in August, or so the story goes. And St. John Lateran, the city's cathedral, holding relics of John the Baptist.
So it became this huge magnet for devotion.
Immense. Rome was the final stop on one of Europe's 3 major medieval pilgrimage routes.
The Spear of St. Michael.
That's it. Started in Scotland, ran straight through Europe, ending at Castel Sant'Angelo.
Wow.
And this whole journey was driven by reverence for these 4 papal major basilicas and other smaller but still vital churches, like Santa Croce in Jerusalem.
The one built on soil from Jerusalem.
Yeah, brought by Empress Helena, containing supposed relics of the true cross. So this spiritual capital became the powerful reason, the why, for its eventual physical rebirth.
Okay, that makes sense. The spiritual pull was huge.
Immense. But the temporal reality, the day-to-day life of the city, was dire.
Right. So who was actually in charge of this city, both spiritually and, well, physically, during these chaotic times?
Well, the history of the popes themselves is maybe even more complex than the city they governed.
Really? How so?
Just constant power struggles. We're talking anti-popes. Periods where popes were even tried after they died.
Tried posthumously. Good grief.
It's a truly macabre testament to how deep those papal power struggles went.
And they weren't just spiritual leaders, were they?
No, no. As heads of the church and major European feudal lords, popes increasingly sought temporal, secular power.
So worldly power, too.
Which led to this long, often violent struggle between the empire, the Holy Roman Empire, and the papacy.
The Guelphs and Ghibellines conflict.
That's the one. And the irony is, the very people who should have been focused on rebuilding Rome.
We're too busy fighting each other.
Exactly. Fighting for survival, really. Leaving Rome to just crumble and decay. It was like a neglected pawn in a much bigger Game of Thrones.
And didn't the struggle lead to the popes actually leaving Rome for a while?
It did.
Yeah.
It ultimately led to the Avignon captivity in the early 14th century.
Where the popes lived in Avignon, France.
For almost 80 years, yeah. Now, it wasn't a true imprisonment, more like a relocation, because Rome itself was physically dangerous for them.
Due to the infighting and instability.
Precisely. And by the time the Pope finally returned, Rome was just a shadow of its former self.
How bad was it, really?
Contemporary accounts describe it as a dirty, smelly city, surrounded by malarial swamps, with a broken sewer system, the ancient cloaca, that apparently hadn't been cleaned in 1,000 years.
1,000 years? Can you imagine the stench?
I mean, the Cloaca Maxima, the great Roman sewer, clogged for a millennium. It wasn't just smelly. It was this potent, ever-present reminder of Rome's utter decay. The city was literally drowning in its own past filth.
Grim. And if the city itself was that bad, what about the heart of its spiritual identity? St. Peter's Basilica, what state was it in?
St. Peter's itself was basically in ruins.
No, seriously.
Yeah, contemporaries reported pigeons nesting on the altar.
You're kidding.
And holes in the roof so large that when it rained, the floor flooded mid-leg deep.
Mid-leg deep inside St. Peter's.
That's what they wrote. So if the absolute heart of Christendom was in that state, you can imagine the rest of the city.
Okay. It's almost impossible to comprehend that level of decay. So given these, just deep-seated problems, who was the first figure brave enough or maybe audacious enough to even start thinking about a serious architectural revival?
Well, the initial attempts at restoration, this is in the 15th century now, they faced two huge problems.
Only guess. Money.
Bingo. Severe lack of money. And second, constant internal curial infighting.
Meaning?
Constant political squabbles and power struggles within the church's own administration, the Curia.
Ah, right. So popes were often too busy with politics to focus on rebuilding?
Pretty much. However, Pope Eugene V reigned 1431 to 1447. He made a really pivotal move.
What did he do?
He hired Leon Battista Alberti.
Alberti. Okay, that name rings a bell. A crucial figure, wasn't he?
Absolutely crucial.
Yep.
An exiled Florentine polymath, brilliant guy, secretary to several popes, and he brought the Roman plastic language back into practice.
The Roman plastic language, what does that mean exactly?
It's essentially the classical architectural grammar, the principles of balance, proportion, the orders.
Like Doric, Ionic, Corinthian.
Those are the Greek orders, yeah.
Yeah.
Alberti's point was how the Romans perfected that system by integrating it with arches.
Okay.
His real innovation wasn't inventing new tech. The Romans didn't invent bricks or concrete either, they just mastered them. Alberti's genius was systematizing it all.
Systematizing?
Yeah, this whole classical approach was rooted in Pythagorean philosophy, believe it or not, where a single module, a single unit of measurement, defined all the proportions of a building.
A mathematical system for beauty, almost.
Exactly. A mathematical grammar for urban spaces.
Yeah.
Alberti reintroduced this refined classical language. It wasn't just about making things look old. It was about making them feel harmonious, inherently logical.
And this principle of proportion, it still affects how we see cities today.
Unconsciously, yes. It guides how we perceive a well-designed street or square, even if we don't know why.
Interesting. And we can see his early influence.
Definitely. Look at buildings like the San Marco Church or Palazzo Venezia.
Yeah.
Fundamentally, they were still medieval castles.
Right.
But Alberti started adding these Renaissance facades, arcaded courtyards, showing a glimpse, a potential for urban change even then.
So a glimmer of hope.
A glimmer, yes. But just as these early hopes for Rome's revival began to flicker, the whole continent was about to be rocked by a series of, well, seismic shifts.
Okay, like what?
Things that pulled attention away from Italy and, paradoxically, actually set the stage for Rome's most desperate, but also its most glorious, rebirth.
Right. The early 16th century, the age of great discoveries, for one.
Exactly. That completely reoriented Europe's economy. The centers of power and wealth shifted dramatically from the Mediterranean
To the Atlantic coasts, Portugal, Spain, later England, France.
Right. Suddenly, who cared what some Italian guy, architect or scholar, thought when new worlds were being found? Italian innovations seemed less pressing.
And then the other big one.
Then, 1517, Martin Luther nails his 95 Theses to the church door in Wittenberg.
The Protestant Reformation begins.
Yeah. The church initially just dismissed him, thought he was a nobody.
Big mistake.
Huge. His protest, then followed by Henry VIII declaring himself head of the Church of England. It fundamentally challenged papal authority.
It hit like a thunderbolt, didn't it? Right at the heart of the papacy's power, an existential crisis.
Truly. And this all culminated, in a way, in the devastating sack of Rome in 1527.
Yes. Charles V's troops. Weren't they supposed to be helping the Pope?
Ostensibly, yes, but they ended up mutinying and sacking Rome with incredible brutality.
How bad was it?
So bad that contemporaries compared it to Attila the Hun's invasion. It was a brutal, brutal wake-up call for the papacy.
So with all these external pressures, mounting economic shifts, the Reformation, the sack, how did the papacy in Rome respond? What was their strategy to claw back influence?
Well, the popes, particularly Paul III, they realized they had to react. They needed to reclaim their authority, their influence.
Which led to?
Which led directly to the Counter-Reformation.
Okay, marked by things like the Council of Trent.
Exactly. The Council of Trent, and also the rise of new religious orders, most famously the Jesuits.
The Jesuits, often seen as this sort of disciplined intellectual force for the church.
Right. Sometimes operating almost like a secret society, wearing secular dress, they spread Catholic doctrine through this vast network of colleges across Europe and beyond.
So part of the response was intellectual and organizational. What about, well, visual? How did they try to win hearts and minds back?
Well, the question became, how do you convince those obnoxious Lutherans, as they might have thought,
Right.
that the Catholic Church is better, truer, more powerful through architectural propaganda?
Propaganda, like building things to make a statement.
Precisely. The ancient Romans themselves basically invented this with the triumphal arch.
This served no practical purpose, really.
Purely propagandistic, a symbol of power and victory. And suddenly, Alberti's revival of that grand classical Roman language, it became incredibly relevant again.
As a tool for the Counter-Reformation.
Exactly. As the visual language of reclaimed Catholic authority and grandeur.
Okay, so this is where the real transformation, the big building projects, began to take shape.
This is where it really kicks into high gear, starting around the mid-16th century. And Michelangelo plays a key role early on.
Michelangelo.
With the Capitoline Hill.
Yes, he redesigned the Campidoglio, the Capitoline Hill. And he created a completely new type of urban space, what you might call a presentation square.
How is this different?
Well, instead of facing the ancient Roman Forum below, which, by the way, was just a cow pasture then, called the Campo Vaccino, the cow field, he turned the whole square 180 degrees around, redirected the city's gaze symbolically.
Towards St. Peter's, towards the Vatican.
Towards the Vatican, yes. And he placed that ancient equestrian statue of Marcus Aurelius at its center.
Which they thought was Constantine, the first Christian emperor.
Exactly. A happy mistake, politically speaking. And in doing so, he basically pioneered the idea of using a central monument as the focus of an urban square. And the design of the square itself, the trapezoidal shape.
That unfolding design, the way the buildings flank it, it was meant to make you feel like you've arrived somewhere important. It's not just a space to pass through. It frames your experience.
Okay, so Michelangelo sets a new standard for urban design. But the really massive changes, the citywide restructuring.
That's where Pope Sixtus V and his architect, Domenico Fontana, come in. This is where Rome's physical transformation really, really takes off.
Sixtus V, he was pope only for about 5 years, right? 1585 to 1590.
Just 5 years, yeah. But incredibly effective. He came from humble origins, was elected when he was old and apparently frail, People thought he'd be a caretaker pope.
But he wasn't.
Not at all. He completely reorganized Rome, top to bottom.
And he started with the most basic problem.
He did. He tackled the water issue first. Remember, the eastern hills were uninhabitable.
Right, no aqueducts working there.
Sixtus hired Domenico Fontana. Now, Fontana wasn't maybe a top-tier artistic genius like Michelangelo, but he was a brilliant engineer and organizer, a skilled plasterer originally, whose brother had actually worked with Michelangelo.
Okay, and Fontana.
Fontana restored the Aqua Felice aqueduct.
Bringing water back to those eastern hills.
Exactly. And he created the Fountain of Moses as its endpoint display. This didn't just provide desperately needed water. It instantly, dramatically increased the land value up there and allowed the city to expand eastward again.
Smart move. Water is life and also real estate value.
Absolutely. Then, Sixtus Savine Fontana did something truly revolutionary for the time. They created a new street system.
Not just repairing old streets.
No, a system, a network of broad, straight avenues designed to connect the major pilgrimage basilicas and other important points in the city.
Like connecting the dots.
Precisely. The most famous was the Strada Felice, named after Sixtus's own name, Felice Peretti. It was his nearly 6-kilometer path linking key basilicas. And it converged with the existing sort of triple radiating streets coming from Piazza del Popolo at the northern gate.
So, imposing order on the medieval tangle.
A systematic, planned approach to urban circulation that just hadn't been seen on that scale for centuries.
Okay, water, streets. What about those obelisks? Fontana is famous for moving them, isn't he?
That was his most spectacular feat, yeah. Moving those ancient Egyptian obelisks.
Which were just lying around.
Well, the Vatican obelisk, for instance, the one now in St. Peter's Square, had been standing near the old basilica since ancient Roman times, but it was off to the side. And crucially, the technology and knowledge needed to move such a massive stone monolith had been lost for centuries.
So how did Fontana do it?
Incredible ingenuity and meticulous planning. He invented this complex system of massive wooden towers, intricate networks of ropes and pulleys, hundreds of men and horses. He calculated everything, the stresses, the weights, the friction.
High-stakes engineering.
Extremely. There's the famous story about the order for silence during the lift, and a sailor shouting to wet the ropes when they started to smoke from friction, saving the day.
Wow.
And Fontana didn't keep his method secret. He published a book detailing exactly how he did it, with diagrams and everything.
Really? So others could copy it?
Yes, and they did. It was a genuine aha moment for engineering across Europe. His methods directly influenced the construction and erection of massive monuments for centuries.
Right.
Think of the Washington Monument or the massive columns of St. Isaac's Cathedral in St. Petersburg. They owe a debt to Fontana's work in Rome.
So Sixtus and Fontana didn't just rebuild parts of Rome. They created a whole new way of navigating and experiencing the city.
Exactly. They created this system of movement. You navigate the city from major square to major square, and each key intersection, each focal point, is marked by one of these towering ancient obelisks, or maybe a monumental column or a grand fountain.
Creating vistas, drawing your eye down these long, straight streets.
Yes. A clear, bold, and visually impressive system of urban planning. Truly unprecedented for its time. It gave the city a structure, a coherence it had lacked for 1,000 years.
Okay, this sets the stage perfectly for the final, maybe most famous piece of the puzzle, St. Peter's Square.
Right. The culmination in many ways. This is Gian Lorenzo Bernini, mid-17th century.
And the challenge he faced there was enormous, wasn't it?
Immense, because the architect Moderno had extended the nave of the new St. Peter's Basilica.
Right.
It meant that Michelangelo's magnificent dome was actually invisible from the square directly in front of the church facade.
Oh, that's a problem. The main feature hidden.
A huge problem.
Yeah.
So Bernini's challenge was, how do you organize the movement, the experience of these vast crowds coming to the basilica, and how do you manage the reveal of that dome?
And his solution was those massive curving colonnades.
Exactly, those embracing arms. They're designed to psychologically bind you. Imagine emerging from one of the narrow medieval streets nearby onto this absolutely vast, overwhelming square. Your instinct isn't to just walk straight across the empty space. You naturally gravitate towards the edge, the forest edge, as it were, created by the colonnades.
Oh, okay, you walk along the curve.
You walk along the curve, typically to the right, following the flow, and then as you approach the central obelisk Fontana had moved,
Yeah.
the dung, hidden until that moment, suddenly, magically appears, rising above the facade, perfectly framed, dominating the view.
Wow. It's orchestrated.
Completely orchestrated. This is the true genius of Baroque design. It's a masterclass in psychological guidance through space.
So that's what true Baroque is about. It's not just the gold and the cherubs and the drama.
Well, those are elements, sure. But the deeper essence, especially in architecture and urbanism, is this theatricality. It's about subtly guiding the viewer's experience, often without them even realizing they're being guided.
Manipulating your perception, almost.
Exactly. Making you, as the saying goes, never know what you're actually seeing. There's always another layer, another controlled perspective. It's this invisible hand shaping your emotional and visual response to the space.
Okay, let's try and bring this all together then. What's the big picture takeaway?
The big picture is that in roughly 100, maybe 150 years, Rome transformed utterly from a ruined, depopulated, forgotten medieval town into a fully functional, coherent, and truly breathtaking urban structure. And crucially, this wasn't just a physical change, like fixing buildings.
It was more fundamental.
It was a theoretical revolution in how you design and think about cities. Urban planning as a discipline was, in many ways, reborn here.
And the principles developed during this Roman transformation, they spread.
Massively. Think about the sequence. Alberti revised the classical language and the idea of proportion.
Okay.
Michelangelo invents the presentation square, focused on a central monument.
Right, the Campidoglio.
Sixtus V and Fontana create systematic street planning with long vistas, solve massive engineering problems like moving obelisks, and use those obelisks as urban markers.
Connecting the dots visually.
And then Bernini perfects the theatrical, psychologically guided urban space with St. Peter's Square.
All these ideas.
They fundamentally influenced city layouts, monument design, and urban planning across the globe for centuries afterwards.
Can you give some examples?
Well, think about the Place de la Concorde in Paris, with its Egyptian obelisk right at the center of that grand axis.
Oh, okay. Direct descendant.
Or the Washington Monument in D.C., another obelisk anchoring a major urban plan. Or even the planning around major railway stations like St. Petersburg's Moscow station, often involving large squares and radiating streets. These are all, in some way, descendants of the ideas tested and perfected in Rome's reinvention.
So this deep dive really reveals something quite profound, doesn't it?
I think so.
That many elements of our modern cities, things we just take for granted, assume are natural or just there, they're actually the product of very deliberate, often ingenious design.
And sometimes even subtle psychological manipulation, like with Bernini.
Right. Which leads to a final provocative thought for you, our listeners. What other invisible hands might be shaping your urban experience today? What subtle design choices are guiding your steps, framing your views, or influencing how you feel in your city, perhaps without you ever consciously realizing it?